To be fair, trying to think of a new name is kind of a hassle. While I was,
Oops, shit, sorry.
never mind. No intro. No,
No.
Shut up, Eric.
Okay, fair enough.
That one really was an accident.
I've gotten used to it.
How's I know it's only hump day, half the day, but how's your guys' weeks going so far?
It's all right. I have a milestone that I'd like to report to you guys.
Oh, please.
For the first time in my life, I made mac and cheese today.
Oh,
For the
like the
first time?
non-microwave variety.
Like
Yeah, I've
first
had
time
mac
ever.
and cheese before, but I've never made it for myself, you know?
Really? Like Kraft mac and cheese?
A Velveeta, but yeah.
Velveeta. Interesting. With the powder and the milk. Did you use milk or water?
Water. And it was
Nice.
still good.
Yeah.
I didn't read beforehand that the box was 3 servings worth, so I had a shit ton of mac and cheese.
Just ate it all and then looked at it like, oh shit, that was 3 servings worth.
That's why I had to use the restroom before coming up here to record, because I had basically a second lunch.
Nice.
So that'll turn away any new listeners. But
Unless they really love mac and cheese.
maybe that's our key. Maybe we got to start bringing cheese up more. That's kind of a weird through line. I feel like cheese gets brought up every now and then on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, Chatwin did have a whole conspiracy about how the government is hoarding all the cheese in the world.
It's true.
I hope that episode comes in eventually. I want to know the secret.
Yeah, for real.
It's kind of funny. Mac and cheese is like right up our audience's tism, you know. It's always mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. This is like a really common thing too. Like people always have mac and cheese and chicken nuggets. Sometimes dino chicken nuggets if you're lucky.
That's true. It's just comfort food, you know? It's just the food we had when we were children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just nostalgic and comforting for us.
And for the amount of effort, comfort versus effort expended to make it is like, you don't really have to, you know, I was watching our sister podcast. I was watching Meech's Instagram of him cooking something crazy, like sushi or something. And I was like, man, I did about 15 less steps in making mac and cheese, and I am still very comfortable.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's the nice thing about mac and cheese. It can be made a multitude of ways.
Yeah, you can't really screw it up, or at least I didn't.
Right. All right, so I guess this week is my lesson. This week is my thing.
I'm excited.
It's a date of this recording is 7/10, which 7/10 upside down backwards is oil. So in the smoking world, industry, reality, dimension, today is oil day. Today's wax day. Today's dab day. I don't know if you guys knew that. So happy dab day. Haven't taken a dab in a long ass time. Fun fact: last time I took out a dab, threw out my back from
Really
from the sciatica. Yeah, because I coughed so hard that I literally threw out my back from coughing. Yeah,
that is sad.
Yeah, so that's where we're at in life. But I don't know if you guys also know at the time of this recording, this week is Shark Week.
Oh my god!
I heard
sharks. Yeah, and sharks are my favorite animal of all time. I freaking love sharks. All kinds of sharks. Great white's probably my favorite. Very cliche, but I would say the mako is also probably one of my favorites because it's the fastest shark ever. So, obviously, in true fashion, this week we will be talking about pornography. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. Everything is everything. Everything is 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 everything is. Hi, I'm David. Everything is 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 everything is.
This is Eric.
Everything is 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 everything is.
Hey yo, it's Chatwin.
Everything is 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 everything.
Well, before the theme, you didn't give us a chance to even respond to this bombshell you dropped on us.
That was the plan. That's why I'm in control of when the theme song plays.
Oh no.
All right. So yes, we are talking about pornography, the history, the making,
You're serious?
all of the above. I'm serious. Today's lesson is
Okay.
pornography, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my
Pornography, as it's known today, does have a beginning date, but pornography as a whole, sexual images or depictions in nature, dates back thousands and thousands of years, quite possibly 35,000 years. So,
Wow.
the word pornography, let's start there. Porn, from the Greek word porni, which means prostitute, and graphy, from the Greek word graphia, which means to write or to record. So when pornography was first a thing, it was literally the writings of prostitutes. It was writing about prostitutes, their sexcapades, their journeys, things of that nature. Hence the term pornography, writings of prostitutes.
Interesting.
But the term pornography for what we know as porn today wouldn't be coined until around the 1860s. But obviously, things of pornographic nature existed much before then. One of the oldest artifacts ever found. I did a lot of research, by the way, on this. I don't know if you guys can tell. My wrist is very sore. So the oldest artifact,
From writing all this out longhand, I'm sure.
exactly.
On your dick.
Include a small figurine termed the Venus of Hohlfels.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it was discovered in 2008 in Germany. Radiocarbon dating suggests it's around 35,000 years old. And it's basically a little short, stubby figurine of a woman with a big bosom. And she's very plump. She's a very plump woman.
It kind of looks like the Michelin Man, or the
A
Michelin
little bit.
Woman, I suppose.
Yeah, but with huge bunkers. Very voluptuous. Very smart woman.
Wow.
And then, of course, they found cave drawings that are thought to be over 12,000 years old. There's recorded sexual acts from Mesopotamia, the Greeks, Romans, Peru, Asia, Europe. Surprisingly, not too many in Egypt, you would think, with all the hieroglyphics and stuff they had going on.
Well, they had those two pyramids. It's literally like two giant boobs. Your horizon is pornography.
Fair enough.
I have a question, if you wouldn't mind me jumping in for a second.
Oh, please, absolutely.
The idea of the Venus as pornography. I guess, I don't want to be too crass here. Like, it's kind of hard with pornography, but is the idea is that someone would have this figurine and, I guess picture a woman while looking at it or while holding it, and then, pleasure themselves, or is it just the idea of like, this was based on an ancient prostitute? Someone made a small sculpture of her.
Yeah, that's a good question, Eric.
Because
So I'm not sure about that one from 35,000 years ago.
yeah, you couldn't ask anyone.
That remains to be seen. I don't know if they found any semen traces among the fossilized semen.
I would imagine it just like represents like fertility, right?
Possibly, quite possibly. And in other depictions that came later, that were still, dubbed, prehistoric, but still like thousands and thousands of years ago. But I guess not prehistoric. History was there, but still pre now. It was a lot of it at the beginning was kind of like admiration, and a lot of the early depictions of pornography when they started becoming drawings and things like that were a lot to do with mythology and legends and things of that nature. Venus, Apollo, Aphrodite, depicted in the naked form, things like that. But we'll get there. So obviously, porn, sexual imagery has been around, for a long, long time. But it wasn't until the invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg.
Oh, yeah.
That images, sexually explicit images, kind of became ready for mass circulation around the world. And before that, they were depicted mostly as engravings, and only the super wealthy could get them. So it was like super duper underground, and only like the wealthy had like stone engravings and carvings of like erotic depictions, and then like the poor people had each other, nothing, you know.
I wonder when the first picture of boobs and butts were.
Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. In around 1500s, I think it was like 1524, 25, something like that. This Italian artist published I Modi, which is also known as the 16 Pleasures, or it has a Latin title here. I've written it down. De Omnibus Veneris Schematibus, which is a famous Italian erotic book from the Italian Renaissance that had engravings of sexual scenes. So that was one of the first like well-known depictions from 1500s. Next comes photography, right? We have printing press. We have images now printed. Next is photographs. The first photograph that's pretty well known, widely known, regarded as the first photograph of a nude woman, was in 1839 by a man named Louis Daguerre.
Wow.
He's French?
Yeah. You will quickly find that the French are one of the biggest reasons pornography exists as it does today and as it did back then.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That or the Italians.
Yeah. The only problem with Louis Daguerre's method and his photographs was that the way that he photographed them, you couldn't make copies. There was no negative created. So his was basically one and done. And if you wanted to make a copy of it, you had to take another picture of it. And to take another copy, you had to take another picture of it, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it sounds like a wet plate or something.
Kind of, yeah. So it wasn't like able to be distributed. But then, a few years later, 1841, comes William Fox Talbot, who patented what's called the calotype process, which was the first negative-positive photography process, and he was able to make multiple copies out of them. So from that, basically, little tiny photographs were able to be distributed. And Paris became like the hub for these pictures. And they would be sold on the streets. It was very underground. There were obviously no laws against this yet because it had been conceived of.
But at this point, pornography is no longer just for the ultra rich. It's
right.
Essentially, if you've heard of it, you can get it.
Exactly. You can go buy it on the street. And some of them were pretty expensive, but you could, find some pretty cheap ones out there. And so it started becoming widely distributed. And this ran through the city of Paris. This ran all throughout Europe because these porn dealers would start to hang out at the train stations and sell them to tourists and things of that nature. So they started to spread, and they made it all the way even to America.
If I could just guess, it was Ben Franklin who brought it to America. he was an old pervert. I'm sure he loved this shit.
Yeah, exactly.
God bless him.
In the UK, these like French photographs basically started coming in bulk. And that's when these the porn dealers really like started taking off, and that's kind of where the porn dealer originated from. And then since all of these started going out in the postal service, they started mailing them. They ended up creating postcards out of them and mailing them to America. They became in America known as French postcards.
Oh,
yeah,
that's a cool name.
And so a little bit of overlap starts to happen here because things start to progress rather rapidly. 1800s, we're in the Industrial Revolution, and technologies are progressing and advancing one after the other.
Thomas Edison invents the electric pornographer.
Right, and the vibrator is great. No, just kidding. Although
a steam-powered vibrator.
Yeah.
I heard something weird about vibrators. Cleopatra had a vibrator that was stuffed with bees to make it vibrate, and it was like made out of gold. And that was her vibrator because they didn't have.
I think it was actually just a Jewish slave with a big nose who vibrated, who had Parkinson's.
Cleopatra. Oh my god. Cleopatra needs to fire her inventor. There has to be a better way than stuffing a gold thing full of bees.
I know. I was thinking if that thing busts open.
Couldn't you just, I don't know, put a bunch of like Rocks in there? No, I guess not. You know, that's why I'm not
Rocks.
an inventor.
She didn't want to beat her pussy.
Well,
I mean, all right.
also, that would be quite the find in the tombs. You're like, oh wait, you know, here's the crown, here's the mask, here's the I know what this is.
I don't want to be the guy that has to like stuff that thing. Who's gonna put the bees in there?
Maybe they just put a little honey in there and then just stuff it up the beehive. You know what? It doesn't matter.
Anyway, sorry. Go on.
So, next we get what? If we're going from photos, where are we going next, gentlemen?
The moving pictures.
Oh, a little too quick. Not quite, not yet. In between.
Flip
Braille?
books.
Flipbook is pretty close. We're moving into magazines. So basically, printing process starts picking up. You're able to reproduce these images in black and white, put them into books, put them into magazines, and it was this like format was the first format that allowed porn to become like mass market, because obviously like people would go and get these French postcards, right, as they were called, but being printed as a magazine that you could just walk down the street and pick it up at your local magazine store or magazine stand or whatever it is, you know, things really, really took off in the pornographic world. And it became pretty much more affordable than ever. And another interesting little form of pornography that arose around the same time were comic books. And they were known
Tijuana
as
Bibles.
Yeah, they were known as Tijuana Bibles. Exactly. Perfect. I see that you've perused a few yourself.
I was reading one before we started the podcast today. No, but
Yeah.
I do know about this where it's, maybe I don't know exactly, because essentially they're using existing IP, they're using existing comic book characters and making a comic that is sexually, you know, Popeye fucking olive oil and stuff like that.
You're like Archie, right?
Archie didn't even need to be a Tijuana comic. It was sexual enough on its own.
There was a lot of tension.
But that's fascinating to me, that's such a strange mutation of pornography, where you went from human nudity and sexuality to people like, you know what, cartoons are good enough, which, you know what, that's still alive today. If you ever go on a DeviantArt, you'll see a whole boatload of it, several terabytes worth.
It does really, the difference I think is that it creates the fantasy versus just a still image, you know. You have backstory.
Yeah.
You get invested.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with a girl in like 7th or 8th grade where I think, you know, a lot of people's sexuality first starts kind of burgeoning. And we got on the subject of pornography, and she said, I much prefer reading pornography. And to me, that always was like wild. But I understand where she's coming from now, where it's like, hey, you know what? Whatever whatever works for you. And this person obviously had a rich imagination, so that worked for her. And, you know, different strokes for different folks. I didn't mean to do that, but it works.
You landed there anyway.
I landed there anyway.
So yes, Tijuana Bibles started popping up in the 1920s, and they pretty much lasted until glossy color men's magazines started becoming really popular. But obviously, as Eric can attest to, you can still find some Tijuana Bibles here or there. And then in the 1940s, the word pinup was coined because men in the military would rip out pictures of women and pin them up on their wall. World War II. And then funny little tidbit I found, in the 40s, images focused mostly on legs, but by the 50s it kind of moved to the boobies. They emphasis shift to the breasts. And
that's so weird. That doesn't seem like boobs had a chokehold on the most popular sexualized part of the female body for a while, and now it's kind of shifted more towards butts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, even 35,000 years ago, look at that little statue that they radiocarbon dated. Big breasts, you know, not really much emphasis on the booty, but huge bosom. And then obviously you have two of the most famous pinup models in history. Can you two gander a guess?
Betty Page.
Close. Betty Grable. You got half the name right. And then the other is
Marilyn Monroe.
correct, Marilyn Monroe. So, in the second half of the 20th century, we get more modern magazines that some of them are still alive to this day. And the beginning of the modern men's glossy magazine can be traced to a specific year, 1953, and it was the purchase of a photograph of Marilyn Monroe. And who purchased this photograph? I give you this question.
Senator John F. Kennedy.
No, close.
Oh.
Happy birthday,
Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
Mr. President.
No, it wasn't a Kennedy.
Oh, Hugh Hefner.
Correct, Hugh Hefner
Ah,
purchased a photo of Marilyn Monroe to use in his new magazine, Playboy. And soon, that's pretty much how all pornography was consumed, were these magazines.
I've never actually owned a Playboy. Not to say that I'm any type of Boy Scout, but I've just never had one. But from what I understand, it's more like a Rolling Stone in the sense that there's articles and interviews and stuff, and it's not all about the nude pictures. And, I think the common kind of hack joke is, oh, I buy this for the articles. But it is interesting that this, at the onset of this, he's like, a magazine can't just be pictures. I want to have some sort of entertainment there as well. Once you're done doing whatever you do with this Playboy, there's a reason for you to not throw it away.
Yeah, in your last lesson, what was the Bob Dylan had a great interview for Playboy.
Yes, exactly.
But he definitely showed his boobies.
Have you ever seen Boogie Nights, David?
I've not.
Oh, it's a really entertaining movie, but it's about probably the next section you're going to get into, which is the video pornography market. And it's got Mark Wahlberg, John C. Reilly, Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's very fun. It's a very funny movie. If I had to assign homework on your own lesson, I would say watch Boogie Nights.
Oh yeah, Boogie Nights.
No, the homework is to watch as much porn as you can in the next week. So
I'm way ahead of you. I'm ready for the exam.
All right. So, John, Matt, and Rick, as you have correctly, astutely guessed, we are jumping next into the world of film. And as I said, there was some overlap. So, production of erotic films pretty much began almost as soon as motion pictures were a thing.
As humanly possible.
That's beautiful.
It was like almost immediate. It was like, oh, let's film an elephant and a monkey dancing, and then let's fuck and put it on. And two of the earliest pioneers were, of course, Frenchmen. Eugene Perreux and Albert Kirchner directed the earliest surviving erotic film, which is a 7-minute film from 1896 titled Le Coucher de la Marie, which also means, or also Bedtime for the Bride or The Bridegroom's Dilemma. And it was basically this actress, Louise Willy, performing striptease. And that was the first official.
So you said surviving. So this still exists, all 7 minutes of it?
I think so. Yeah, I think you can find it somewhere. I didn't check.
Since this is basically the turn of the century, I'm picturing like the twinkly piano music over it, like
Basically. And it's like 2 frames a second. Yeah.
an old man in a top hat going, "My word, look at this."
Also, in 1896, was a movie released called Fatima's Coochie Coochie Dance, which was a short kinetoscope film featuring a gyrating belly dancer named Fatima. And her gyrating and moving pelvis was censored, and it is one of the earliest known films to be censored.
Can I jump in with a fun fact?
Please.
The censored version of that movie, because that sounded so familiar to me until you mentioned the belly dancing. Do you guys remember in Main Street of Disneyland how they have a little theater?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it only shows old Mickey Mouse shorts, but back in like the 50s and 60s, they would show basically Walt Disney's personal film collection, where he had a lot of like turn of the century animation, the first stop motion animation, and Fatima's Dance, because that was like, it blew Walt Disney away when he was a little, teenager boy.
He had a
And-
copy of Fatima's Coochie Coochie.
And not only did he have a copy, he showed it at Disneyland for kids to see the world over.
That's amazing.
So
how do you know that?
That's
first
fantastic.
pornography to be don't ask. No, I listened to a theme park podcast. But yeah, good enough for Disneyland, good enough for you and me.
Indeed. That same year, the May Irwin Kiss was a film which contained the very first kiss on film. It was a 20-second film loop, which was a close-up of a nuzzling couple, followed by a short peck on the lips.
Oh, geez. It's just already hot in here.
It was denounced as shocking and pornographic and caused the Roman Catholic Church to call for censorship and moral reform, because kissing in public at the time basically could lead to prosecution.
It's wild that censoring really only jumped in on this once the image became a moving image. That when your imagination is one of the main factors, the censorship, like, they didn't. I don't know. That's interesting that the rise of censorship coincided with the rise of.
Well, it was hard to censor the engravings that people were putting out, but beforehand, it did start becoming illegal in a lot of countries. So I guess that's a form of censorship.
Yeah.
And that's why those porn dealers started dealing underground and everything, because it became very taboo and hush hush, because it eventually became illegal in a lot of countries once it started becoming popular.
Mm-hmm.
And so did a lot of these films. Once a lot of these films came out, these smut films, if you will, these pornographic films, or blue films, as they were called, in the 1940s, processing them wasn't, because back in the day you had film. It wasn't like you just got a USB and boom, or you got a digital file and nice, you got your video. No, you basically got a roll of film and you had to process it. They couldn't take it to any of these production companies to process it, or these processing companies. So they had to use their bathtubs. So they used bathtubs to clean the film, get the images. And obviously, if you got caught, you were risking jail time. Then technological developments came about. You get the 8mm Super 8 film. Amateur cinematography starts becoming a thing. And entrepreneurs start taking over the market in terms of pornography. And this leads to what's known as the golden age of porn.
I say the golden age film of porn.
Yep.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, between the 70s. Actually, some say it started in 1969. Wink, wink, 69. But yeah, till pretty much 1980. Erotic films were produced in the United States with narratives. You got movie style like budgets. Everything seems to be trending upwards for the pornographic industry, and it's making a lot of money. And then, pornography started kind of becoming more globally accepted. Denmark started legalizing porn. There was a movie, very famous movie, released in June 12th, 1969, by none other than Andy Warhol,
My birthday.
known as Blue Movie. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
happy birthday.
Oh, is this the one with the blowjob?
I think so. I believe
Okay.
so.
Yeah,
And
was
then
that-
somewhat later, there was a release of a film called Mona, which was produced by Bill Osco.
there's also Behind the Green Door too. Have you heard of that one?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
That
Yep,
one
that's
was a
on the
really
list.
big one, and
Yeah.
I went down kind of a rabbit hole, looking at. It's kind of funny, somewhat recently, because I think it was the guy who plays Superman was being interviewed, and the interviewee said something like, "What's like a guilty pleasure?" And he said, "Behind the Green Door." And I was like, "What the hell is that?" So I
Oh
looked it up,
shit!
Mhm.
and this is
Yeah.
like the golden age, like that, and Andy Warhol were like the first, like the,
It was John Cena, I think.
was it John Cena?
This is a tough one.
I know.
That means you're
I'm not
ashamed
afraid
of
to
it.
admit
Not ashamed. Yeah, exactly.
Behind the Green Door?
Beyond.
That's a good one.
Is that your guilty pleasure movie?
Behind the Green Door?
Really? What's that movie?
Wait, I think a movie called The Green Door. What's behind the green door?
Just looking to see if anybody gets it.
I'll look it
No,
up. Let me look
don't
it
worry about it. Yeah, go ahead.
just
Check it
look it
out.
up.
Check it out.
All right, continue.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else have a guilty pleasure movie?
What is Behind the Green Door, John? Does anybody know? Raise your hands.
Green Door is 1972 hardcore pornography.
I got flagged. I'm on that Wi-Fi here. Like, what would you do?
So, so,
John?
bro, I'm just trying to genuinely
John?
answer the question. I like the classics. I got a knack for the classics.
I think so. I think it was John Cena.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because I think I saw the clip. I think I saw that clip on. It was like, "What's your guilty pleasure?" And he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Behind the Green Door." And so everyone else was like, "What the hell is that?" And he was like, "If you know, you know."
Why
Yeah.
is John Cena watching 50-year-old porn?
He's funny that way too. It could just be a joke.
And I got the poster, and I actually found a copy of it. I can send to you guys.
Wow.
Of the because it's almost impossible to find.
You know, for further research purposes on this topic, I think I should get a copy of that.
Apparently, it's really dark though. It's like pretty grim and really
Lighting
weird.
wise, oh,
I haven't.
Like, I
seen
need
it.
to edit the exposure, or like dark as in like she gets murdered as she's getting
I don't know. It's got like
screwed.
I think it has. It's
Oh.
pretty dirty. It's porn, all right. And I think it was
Nice.
the first one that had a white girl with a black guy. I think.
oh,
How
yeah,
dare they?
I think I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, cut this out.
that's
Make me
like
sound
the
smart.
ultimate taboo in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right. Well, speaking of wild and dirty, that guy Bill Osco, who produced the movie Mona, went on to create the relatively high-budget, hardcore, softcore, depending on which version you got, film Flesh Gordon, which was a 1974 American superhero sex comedy, which was obviously a spoof of Flash Gordon from the 1930s. And then there was the film Boys in the Sand, which came out in 1971, which represented a lot of milestones, I guess, pornographic firsts. It was the first available gay pornographic film.
All
It
right.
was the first pornographic film that included credits on screen, as normal
All right.
movies did. And it was the first pornographic film reviewed by the New York Times.
Do you know what what the score was?
I don't. I didn't look it up after. I'm sorry.
69 stars out of 100.
Right, 6.9. Again, a little bit of overlap here, but next we come into video and digital. So by the early 1980s, 1982, 83, a lot of the pornographic films were being shot on videotape as opposed to, actual film. And a lot of high-end directors who were, obviously wanting to do porn, the ones who did do porn, resisted the shift because of the image quality difference. But it seemed for some reason that a lot of the audience and a lot of the people enjoyed the new format. So they ended up just going with it. And then this also brought pornographic films out of the theaters and into the private use of people's homes, because, people started getting, what are they calling, VCRs and things of that nature. Now you don't have to go to the theater to watch it. You can watch it at your house. And now the big production mainstream pornographic films kind of started fading away, and you got a lot more of the home video, amateur, entrepreneur
Cheaper
style
budgets.
videos. Exactly.
Girls
And
Got
then
Wild.
instead of right. Well, that comes a little later, but yeah. And then instead of hundreds of like these porn films being made a year,
Thousands.
now you get thousands of homemade videos that start circulating all over the place. Enter CD-ROMs and computers in the late 1980s and early 1990s, and you have erotic CDs. The only problem with that was it was still pretty poor quality. You couldn't really, fit all that much onto a CD.
Dial-up porn where you're just watching 2 pixels go at it and you're like, oh, I think that's sexy.
Right. And then as soon as the internet hit, CD-ROMs, erotic CDs really just died almost immediately, because you have access to it. You don't have to go buy a CD and boot it up and blah, blah, blah. You just have access to the internet.
I wonder if there's any like porn on like floppy disks.
Oh, I don't know. Interesting.
Oh, man.
It's probably like Eric said, it's just 2 bits bumping heads.
This whole time I've been thinking the idea of porn going from, invention to niche popularity in one country to all countries to going from illegal to legal to in all homes. It's reminded me of illegal drugs. I'll use weed as an example, because you know, it in our lifetimes and just in the like larger timeline, it has gone kind of that same way where it went from illegal and basically, you know, only used in certain spots by certain people to now, you know, you walk into any weed store and there are, you know, a group of 60-year-olds grandmas who are just getting some weed to go back home with. And it's like, but the difference is with porn, it's exploded so much now that it basically defies capitalism itself. You don't need to buy porn anymore. It's there. It's free. You know, if you wanted to, you never had people. There's probably a whole generation of people, myself included, that has never had to purchase anything included with porn. And drugs can't really do that because it's a different type of experience. But I don't know. It's weird for a medium to kind of phase out of profitability in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. So now we get into a different age, right? We're going from pornographic films and pornographic. Oh, by the way, the first porn star, because obviously we have these big budget pornographic films going on, you now start having porn stars becoming a thing. The first porn star, arguably, that became like a household name, her name was Linda Lovelace, which was her porn name. Her real name was Linda Susan Borman, who starred in the 1972 film Deep Throat. I don't know if you've ever heard of that film, but also very popular back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that now we get the evolution of the internet, as you said, and we've had the evolution of porn stars. In the 1980s, there was an outbreak of HIV and AIDS in the pornographic film industry, which caused a lot of deaths, a lot. It led to the creation of the AIM, which was the Adult Industry Medical Healthcare Foundation, which you had to basically voluntarily get tested for HIV, chlamydia, and gonorrhea every 30 days. And then twice a year for like hepatitis and syphilis, I think. In 2011, they closed their doors, and then another company organization called the Free Speech Coalition has been monitoring the pornographic performers testing. And they basically have to get tested every 14 days for HIV, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, hepatitis, like all the things. And the life expectancy of a porn star, by the way, this is up to date. This is now. Life expectancy of a porn star is around 37 to 40 years. Whereas average life expectancy of an American is around 78.
Jesus, why? Is it just from STDs?
No, a lot of them are committing suicide. A lot of them are killing themselves at a really young age. And there's been a lot of articles about this, a lot of drug abuse. A lot of them, you know, lose support of their friends or family. And, you know, eventually a lot of them, once they leave the industry, lose their sources of income. They realize they don't have as much money as they thought they did making money from the industry. They don't have much to fall back on because a lot of them don't go to school and things like that. So, you know, it just depends as to why a lot of them are dying, but there have been a lot of research and a lot of articles as to what's going on and why so many of them are dying so young. And, you know, is it have to do with the porn industry like preying upon them? Does it just all mental because of the things they've had to do and the drugs they've abused? And who knows?
It's kind of interesting. The gal who did the Behind the Green Door, she also died pretty young. Not 30s, but I think early 40s or 50s, and it was something to do with she might have OD'd or she drank herself to death. But she was like one of the original ones. This has been happening for years now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But from what you're saying, that's crazy.
Yeah, so it's kind of sad now, kind of a more sad industry. Obviously, with the rise of OnlyFans, you know, women and other pornographic actors and actresses have kind of started to take things back into their own hands. You have professional film or professional pornography studios, and obviously like Brazzers and Bang Bros and all these other ones. But yeah, that brings us to the modern day pornography. There's your history lesson of the week. Pornography has been around since the dawn of man, and it seems that humans are just a freaky sort of bunch. And
we've been horny forever.
yeah, it seems like any new invention, the first thought is like, oh, how can we make life better with this? And then the second thought is, how can we use this to pleasure ourselves? In what way?
How can I fuck it?
Right, literally.
I would say that I guess I don't know for sure. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but it seems like with the OnlyFans model right now, porn is in a good place because unlike, being in the porn film industry, you're your own boss with OnlyFans. If any of these people having an OnlyFans, they're running their own business essentially with, kickback going to OnlyFans, the company, the app, etc. But it is essentially, you're not working for a film industry. And I think hopefully in the future, porn is seen, it's still people who engage in porn, rather consuming or creating it, aren't given respect when, it's a creative industry. It's not something that everyone wants to do. So,
True. But also at what cost? Because I would agree with you. Obviously, OnlyFans is models and things of the porn stars are in a better place because of platforms like OnlyFans. But still, I mean, there's so many stories of families and friends and whatever finding out that their daughter has an OnlyFans or their friend has an OnlyFans, and then that woman losing, all respect from her friends and family, losing her job, losing her whatever it is, losing, and then she loses everything in her life except for all the horny dudes on the internet who are like, yeah, I'll send you $10 to send me pictures of your coochie. And all of a sudden she goes and kills herself anyway because she loses her support system. And I think that's a lot of the issue too.
There needs to be a conversation, at large, about why this is disrespected, because it's obviously, it's work, it's not like it's not work. It's work. It's whether you're doing it on the film, whether you're being photographed or the photographer or, or just taking pictures of yourself, you're creating a product. This is a service that you're providing, and it shouldn't be. Same with sex work. It shouldn't be looked down upon as lesser or worthy of, being kicked out of a community, ostracized. It's, I don't know. Yeah. I think you're right. We have a long way to go, but it is crazy. The history of it is crazy. This is one of those things that has mutated so much in 200 years.
Even in our lifetime, we've seen mutations because I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, like back in the day, when we were in high school and cell phones started first becoming a thing, if you were ever so lucky to receive, a nude from a girl, the first, second, third, and eighth thing that she said before, during, and after sending you that nude was, don't you ever show this or send this to anyone in your life or I will murder you. Right? That's what they all say. And of course, guys are guys, humans are humans. They send it to their friends. They show their friends. So have you. So what will it be? But then you progress, maybe 10 years later. And now women are begging you, not only begging, but promoting themselves to have you pay to come see these pictures that they would have sent you 10 years ago and made you hush hush about it.
There's
true, but it's for a price.
Yeah, true. But it probably was back then, given not necessarily a money price, but you still had to give some of your attention. Your reputation was lost a little when you sent out the nude to all your friends.
Well, that's it. I think it's
found out about it.
If you're sending a nude to someone, it's the ultimate expression of trust, and that's why it's. And if you break that trust, then probably I remember there was a specific example. I was thinking about this earlier today in high school of a girl who shared a nude with a guy in our class, and he spread it around. No. And for the editor, bleep that out. No, it was a different
I just like-
person.
Damn it,
But it-
David.
I just like giving Chatwin headaches.
I think it's very funny. You know that Catch Me Outside girl?
Oh, Bad Bobby. Yeah.
She was caught outside, but people, it's kind of creepy. But as soon as she turned 18, she made an OnlyFans,
Mm-hmm.
and she made $18 million,
Oh yeah.
Jeez.
according to her. That is insane.
Any of these women out there?
Amaranth is like insanely rich. If you've ever
Oh
heard
yeah.
of her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Haktua girl. You know the Haktua girl that just went famous?
Yeah, I was
Everyone-
going to bring her up.
Everyone's begging her to make an OnlyFans.
Yeah,
Begging
she
her,
won't do
please, please make. Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
please show us your body because you said Haktua on the end. Like, what?
Yeah.
There's men are so simple. Just say Haktua, and they want to
I
see
mean-
you naked. Like that's all you need.
There's a bag to be
Jesus
made,
Christ.
and I can see why a lot of gals would find it very empowering. But
Yeah,
what is even more empowering is all these guys, all these gals skipping the tax man. Have you heard about
Sure.
all of the tax man knocketh? And a lot of these OnlyFans gals have never run a business before, and they are
Mhm.
getting absolutely destroyed by the tax man.
Yeah,
So,
that is
Jeez.
true.
if there's any ladies listening to this podcast, which there aren't, but if there are, get an accountant if you make an OnlyFans, because the tax man will be knocking at your door. Well, that's all I wanted to say. Is,
And the IRS will fuck you harder than any vibrator.
yeah, no matter
That's
how
cool.
many bees are inside of it.
Hey, call back to an earlier thing said in the episode. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David. I really appreciate this valuable lesson.
Thank you guys. I'm glad I could entertain you, and happy Shark Week.
Yeah, happy Shark Week indeed. I was very not relieved, but I was entertained that this was a pretty dry history, no pun intended, of just how the history of a medium develops. And yeah, fantastic episode, David. I'm excited to beat off after this.
Now, do you want to know a good shark fact?
Yeah,
Seeing as it is Shark Week,
absolutely.
do you know
Always.
sharks are older than trees?
Oh yeah, sharks are one of the oldest living species in the world. They predate dinosaurs. They predate trees. They're amazing. I freaking love sharks. I was actually going to do this episode on sharks, but then I was like, that's actually a little on the nose, and I know way too much about sharks. We'd probably be here for like 3 hours. What else could I talk about? And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to go watch some. Oh, you know, I could talk about that. No, that's kind
My
of
second most informative topic.
Yeah.
yeah, literally. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming on this pornographic journey with me. I hope you have been stimulated in many ways. And
Everything is Everything. Everything is Everything is an ABD Productions podcast. Executive produced and hosted by David Abdu, Chatwin Cray, and Eric Helling. Video and audio captured by Riverside.fm. If you have any inquiries, please reach out to us via everythingiseverything69@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.